They say time changes everything. But what if time only brings you back to where you truly belong? Asterisk, the city still glows, the way it always did, golden lights spilling across wet streets, reflections dancing in puddles like old memories. Los Angeles never sleeps, but tonight it feels quieter, almost nostalgic. A black limousine rolls through the mist, the rain whispering against its windows. Inside, an older man sits alone, staring out at the city that once gave him everything, and took something priceless in return. He doesn't need music to remember her laugh. It still lives somewhere inside him, soft and bright, like the echo of a song that never ends. His phone buzzes, a reminder of the present he no longer feels part of. He ignores it, closes his eyes, and lets his mind drift backward decades back, to a night filled with red silk and stolen glances. For a moment, the world around him shifts. The rain becomes the sound of applause, and he's young again standing at the foot of the Beverly Wilshire, staring at her. She turns, laughing in that unforgettable red dress. The world freezes, and he smiles like a man who's just seen forever. Then the memory fades. The light changes. The man opens his eyes, older now, quieter. The limo turns a corner, disappearing into the fog. Across town, a small boutique glows warmly through the rain. Inside, a woman carefully folds silk scarves, her movements slow and thoughtful. The years have touched her gently, leaving grace where once there was fire. She hums softly to herself, unaware that the same rain is falling on him. 2. A framed photo rests by the counter, two people smiling in another lifetime. She brushes a thumb over the glass, her eyes softening. Nearby, a red dress hangs beneath plastic wrap, perfectly preserved, untouched by time. The clock ticks. She looks toward the window, watching raindrops chase each other down the glass. For a heartbeat, she feels it, that same pull, that same memory that never really left. The world outside blurs, and for a second, it's as if she can still see him standing there in the rain. She turns off the lights, locks the door, and steps outside. The rain slows, then stops. The city holds its breath. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of a piano fades into silence. Sometimes the past doesn't stay behind. Sometimes it waits patiently. For the right night to return, asterisk, the years rolled by quietly, like pages in a book no one finished reading. Edward built his empire higher, floor by floor, deal by deal, until his name was carved into glass towers that touched the clouds. But the higher he went, the lonelier the view became. Meetings filled his days, silence filled his nights. He'd stand by the window of his penthouse, watching the city below, thousands of lights, thousands of lives, and wonder which one might still remember him. His office was full of people, but empty of warmth. Assistants came and went, voices echoed through marble halls, but none ever reached his heart. The laughter he once knew had turned into the faint hum of city traffic outside his window. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he'd pour 2 glasses of wine out of habit, then pour one back. Miles away, Vivian's life had found its rhythm. The boutique had grown, small but steady, its shelves filled with color and comfort. She had customers who adored her, friends who checked in, and evenings that passed peacefully with a book or a quiet walk home. Yet every so often, when the wind carried a certain centrain on pavement, roses and bloom, she'd feel something stir, like a door opening inside her chest. A memory, gentle but persistent. She never spoke of him. Some memories are too sacred to name, but sometimes when closing the shop late, she'd hum that song, and the sound would hang in the air a little too long, as if someone, somewhere, was listening. The camera pans over both their worlds, him standing in a glass office overlooking the city, her walking through narrow streets lit by neon reflections, 2 lives running parallel, separated by distance and time, but connected by a silence that speaks louder than words. They both have what they once dreamed of: success, stability, freedom. Yet, under all of it, something is missing, a heartbeat, a warmth, a reason. Neither of them knows that the same feeling lives on in the other. The city moves between them. Unaware, it holds 2 stories that never ended. Somewhere in the night, the same moonlight touches her window and his. And for the first time in years, both of them look up. They don't know it yet, but fate has begun to turn its wheel again. The quiet before the reunion has started. It began with something ordinary like, all extraordinary things do. A message in Edward's inbox. Charity Gala, Beverly, Wilshire. Honoring community changemakers. He almost deleted it. He'd been to hundreds of events like this, each one blending into the next. But something about the name the hotel made him pause. It was the same place where everything once began. The same place where love had changed the course of his life. He didn't plan to go. He just found himself there. The night of the gala sparkled with the kind of glamour that hides quiet hearts. Chandeliers glowed like captured stars, the hum of soft jazz filled the air, and people mingled in practiced smiles. Edward stood by the balcony, untouched glass of champagne in hand. To everyone else, he was the man who had it all. But to himself, he was still waiting for something unnamed. Something he once lost in the sound of laughter on a Hollywood street across town. Vivian's boutique had been chosen to sponsor the same event her designs displayed under silver lights. She hadn't planned to attend either, but her assistant insisted. So she went. Dressed simply, elegantly, she arrived with quiet confidence, unaware that fate had written her name into this night long before either of them had agreed to come. The camera moves through the gala crowd, polished shoes, clinking glasses, murmured conversations. A woman's red heels step onto the marble floor. The sound echoes softly. Edward turns not because he hears her, but because he feels something shift, like the world had taken a breath. He looks across the room. A flash of red catches his eye. She's speaking to someone, her back turned, her hair swept up just like before. He doesn't see her face. He doesn't need to. Some memories don't fade, they wait. She senses it to the quiet tension in the air, the invisible thread pulling at her. She turns slowly, eyes scanning the crowd, as if listening for a heartbeat she once knew. And there, he is older, steadier, but unmistakably him. For a moment, time folds. The music fades. The years vanish. Two souls, once strangers, then lovers, now ghosts in each other's stories, stand still as the world moves around them. Neither speaks. Neither needs to. The silence between them says everything words can't, and just like that, the spell breaks. A waiter passes, someone calls her name, the crowd shifts him. She's gone. But Edward's eyes follow her until she disappears into the golden light of the ballroom. He knows he won't leave tonight without finding her again, because fate, after all these years, has decided their story isn't finished. Asterisk, the night didn't end when the music stopped. It lingered like perfume in the air, like the sound of rain long after it's fallen. Edward didn't sleep. He sat by his window, the city glowing beneath him, his reflection staring back with a quiet ache. The gala had ended, but something in him had begun again. He could still see her at the red dress, the way she turned, the moment their eyes met across a lifetime. It wasn't nostalgia. It was gravity. Morning came softly. The city yawned awake, unaware that somewhere, two hearts had been stirred from hibernation. Edward found himself driving aimlessly, letting the car decide the direction. Every turn seemed guided by something unseen, until, without planning it, he stopped outside a familiar corner, the one with the small boutique and a window filled with silk inside. Vivian stood arranging scarves, her eyes lost in thought. When she looked up, her breath caught. Through the glass, she saw him. Not the man she once knew. Not the man from her dreams, someone real. Someone changed. The years between them vanished in a heartbeat. She stepped outside before she could think twice. They didn't rush into words. Time had taught them silence could speak too. He smiled first, gentle, unsure. She smiled back, the kind that begins with disbelief and ends in warmth. You still sell scarves, he said softly. And you still wear the same kind of tie, she replied. It wasn't small talk, it was memory disguised as conversation. Every glance carried pieces of the past, the hotel balcony, the laughter, the way they once fit together like two notes in the same song. But this wasn't the same story. They were older now, wiser, shaped by all the years that had passed. They walked through the nearby park, the city noise fading behind them. The world felt slower, as if giving them space to rewrite their ending. She told him about her shop, the people she'd helped, the peace she'd found. He spoke of business, success, and the loneliness that came quietly with it. They didn't hide their scars, they shared them like truths. Finally ready to be spoken aloud, at a quiet bench beneath a blooming jacaranda, he looked at her and said, "I thought time would make me forget." She smiled faintly. "Time doesn't erase love. It just waits for you to remember why it mattered." The sun broke through the clouds, painting them both in gold. For the first time in decades, Edward laughed on, the practiced kind, but the real. Unguarded kind that had once made her heart race. And she laughed too, softly, like the woman she used to be was coming home. For a moment, they were no longer the people the years had built. They were just two souls who had wandered through life, only to find their way back too. The world has a strange way of giving back what it once took away, sometimes gently, sometimes all at once. For Edward and Vivian, it came quietly, a second sunrise, an unplanned meeting, a door that never fully closed. Days passed after their reunion, but the feeling didn't fade. They began to meet again, not by grand design, but by small choices. Coffee at the corner cafe that played soft jazz. Walks through the park where time moved slower. Conversations that felt both new and deeply familiar. Edward found himself listening more than he spoke. Vivian's laughter filled the spaces in him he'd forgotten were empty. She noticed the calm in him, too. The sharp edges softened, the weight of ambition replaced by the simplicity of being present. They didn't chase the past. They just let it breathe again. One afternoon, the rain returned, soft and steady. They shared an umbrella, walking side by side through the streets of Los Angeles. The same city that once introduced them now watched in silence as they rediscovered what had never truly left. The years between them melted into the rhythm of footsteps and raindrops. He looked at her, eyes full of the years they lost. "Do you ever wish we'd found our way sooner?" he asked. She smiled, gentle but certain. "No, we found it now. That's what matters." In that moment, the city lights reflected in her eyes, and he realized love hadn't aged, it had evolved. What once burned bright and fast now glowed warm and steady. Not the love of youth, but the love that survives time. Later, as they sat together in the same hotel lobby where their story began, neither spoke of what came next. They didn't need to. Some stories don't end or begin. They simply continue, written in glances, laughter, and quiet understanding. Outside, the rain slowed, leaving the city glistening. Edward reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. Decades had passed, but in that touch, everything felt the same. The camera pans up past their silhouettes, past the street, past the lights to the sky clearing after the storm. A soft melody plays. It's tender and full of promise. Because sometimes love doesn't return to repeat the past, it returns to finish what was never meant to end. Title fades in. Pretty Woman 2, decades later. Love returns asterisk. The city glows beneath the dusk. The skyline dusted in gold, as if time itself were applauding their return. Somewhere between the noise of the streets and the hush of the horizon, two souls walk side by side, no longer haunted by what was lost, but grateful for what remained. Vivian looks up at the old hotel sign flickering in the distance, the same one that once stood witness to their beginning. "Funny," she says softly, "how some places never really change." Edward smiles, following her gaze. Maybe they wait for the right people to come back. They stand in silence, the kind that feels full rather than empty. Around them, life moves on. Cars hum by. Laughter drifts from a nearby cafe, and somewhere a musician strums a familiar tune. The world doesn't stop for them this time. It doesn't need to, because love no longer needs to make a grand entrance. It simply exists, calm and certain. A light breeze catches her hair. He reaches out instinctively to tuck a strand behind her ear. The gesture is small, but it carries the weight of decades. The promise is kept. The chance is missed, the unspoken wish that time could loop back. Yet now, none of that matters. They have arrived exactly where they were meant to be, as they walk toward the same street where their story first began. The camera follows from behind. The city lights stretch ahead like a path of stars. Their shadows merge as they move closer, two silhouettes blending into one. The music swells soft strings, a gentle piano, a heartbeat beneath it all. He looks at her and whispers, almost to himself, "I used to think happy endings were only for stories." She glances up, eyes glimmering under the streetlight. "Maybe they are," she says, "until you decide to live one." They stop at the crosswalk where it all began, where a stranger once offered a smile, and a love story changed forever. The signal turns green. She takes his hand. They cross together. As the camera pans upward, the rain begins again, gentle, cleansing, almost like a blessing. The city lights blur into soft halos, the music reaches its final note, and the screen fades to black. On-screen text appears, because some loves never fade. They simply find their way home. Then, in elegant gold letters, "Pretty Woman 2, decades later, love Arita Renesta," music fades, leaving only the sound of rain and a quiet sigh of peace on ending. At last, that feels like a beginning.